Now, let's look at the detailed structure of chapter 1. So, we can basically divide chapter 1 into 3 areas or 3 topics. Those are sutras 1 through 22, sutras 23 through 40, and sutras 40 through 51. So sutra number 40 can belong in either the 2nd subsection or the 3rd subsection. And then there are actually additional subsections within each of these. And that's what I have given here. So what I want you to see before we go into the word by word, and we will come back to this chart with some regularity, is I want you to see that Patanjali is presenting topics. And the topics are, so this handout is posted in the student portal. So you go to portal.yogawell.com and then you log into chapter 1. It'll be in this handout was given in last class, so it will be in next to the class recording from last class. So what Patanjali is doing is this is like an outline of the order of the ideas that Patanjali has put. So first of all, we're going to define yoga, and we're going to define the result of yoga. Then, since yoga is about the mind, we're going to define mind. Then, since we're talking about a state of mind, here are the means that you can acquire that state. Then, when you have acquired that state, there's kind of a process that you go through to get there. And here is the result of that process. It's actually the process itself and the results. Time and time again in the Yoga Sutra, there is a structure where something is done, there is a doing, and then there is a result. Samadhi is the activity. Prajna is the result. Samadhi is a perceptual state. Prajna means wisdom. So again and again, there's this structure of doing, result, doing, result. So that is here in 1 through 4. What is yoga? Yoga is a directing of the mind in a chosen direction. What is the result of that? Clarity. The result of yoga, the result of directing the mind is clarity. We don't do clarity. The result of directing the mind is becoming established in yourself. You don't do becoming established in yourself. You do the directing of the mind. Then the result is you become established in yourself. So Patanjali fills that out a lot. So what is yoga? Yoga is directing in the mind. What is the result? It's clarity. Okay, so we're going to talk about what is mind, since we're going to be talking about the directing of it. Okay, and then what? Well, then, since we're talking about the capacity to direct the mind, we have to understand how to obtain that capacity. As we go through obtaining this state of mind, there are different results. They're put here. Oops, what happened? There are different results. They're put here. What gives you the energy? What gives you the capacity to go through this process and experience these results? Shraddha. Fundamentally, at some fundamental level, one of the highest values of yoga is faith, belief, conviction. All right, then. This is such a nice, beautiful structure, but you know what? Life is messy. It's really messy. So Patanjali gives us a list of 9 things that can happen in life that are difficult. They include illness, mental fatigue, like when somebody you love is no longer in your life, doubt, inability to know what is the next step, right? Should I stay or should I go now? And before there comes intuitive response, you have to make a decision. So then you give yourself a lot of trouble. Yes, it's called pramada, haste, making a decision, taking an action before it has become clear how you should proceed. Okay, Patanjali in this section, he says those 9 things are difficulties. They are going to happen. They are going to happen. However, if you are out of balance, it will cause you a lot of problems. Then he gives, this is what it looks like when you're out of balance and problems start happening. Then he gives 9 solutions for recovering balance. Because why? Because the problem is not what's happening in life. The problem is your mind. The problem is your state. The problem is the way that you are oriented in the problem. You know, it would be wonderful if everybody we loved stayed in our life our whole life. Ain't going to happen. I mean, let's knock on wood that happens later than sooner, but right? What, you're never going to get ill, never going to get sick? So he gives 8 things to do if you discover that you're handling the situation poorly. 9 things to do. He gives 9 things to do. But one of the things is so powerful that he gives it before he even talks about there being difficulties in life. Because if you have that one thing, which is surrender to a higher power, if you have that one thing, then what happens? Difficulties in life never become obstacles. But if you don't believe in a higher power, we have 8 other excellent solutions for you. And over time, you will come to believe in God. Oh, did I say that? I didn't mean that. Very interesting when we get here and we're talking about what is God, what is the Yoga Sutras presentation of a higher power. What we will see is that the presentation is inspirational. And as you proceed in this path, it is impossible to get very far before you recognize how little control you have over situations. And that uncorks a whole examination of like, how do things happen and how should I decide what to do and where should I go in my decision making. And this leads eventually to a deep spirituality. And the presentation of what is God is so open that spirituality can be very deep and personal to the person. So the very last sutra of this section, which also can go in this other section as well. The very last sutra of this section states what is capable if you're able to maintain your balance through all the vagaries of life. Even if there is mass pandemic and governmental handling of things that is not helping. Or could have been better. You can still maintain your state of balance, and there you will respond in a different way than if you're freaking out. If you can maintain that, what he says is, nothing is beyond your understanding. The implication is, you will know, you will be able to find your knowing about how to respond and proceed. In the last section of chapter 1, if you can maintain your stability of mind in no matter what is happening, what will happen is you'll have a different experience. Okay, fundamentally, if I am in a certain situation, how I'm going to be seeing and perceiving that situation is going to be largely based on my previous experiences. This is all yoga theory. If I am able to maintain some balance, then I will be able to maintain some stability of attention. In the stability of attention, opens the opportunity to differentiate between what is my projection and what is actually there. And when we start seeing our projections, then we start having a different experience of whatever is happening. When you have a different experience of what is happening, then a different residue is laid down in your system. Because all experience leaves some kind of residue, and that residue slowly accumulates and over time becomes your pattern. And then your patterns dictate how you approach and perceive a situation, and they determine actually what the situation means to you, etc. I have, in this time of COVID, my wife and I drove up to be with my parents, and we, so I'm with my parents, and my parents and I have very different perspectives on what the political situation is in the United States. So, despite very reasonable and eloquent explorations and explanations, neither side seems to be budging in their view. And it's so interesting to me because I have to admit that the other side is very reasonable. Possible, both are correct. It's possible. Really. I sincerely believe that. I still have my opinion. But I sincerely believe it's possible both are correct. And, I have these conversations with mostly my mother, and she brings up really good points and really lays out things that are very eloquent. And draws, and we see the same set of circumstances, and I draw one conclusion and she draws the other conclusion. Why? Because I have my set of patterning, she has her set of patterning. Where does the patterning come from? From our previous experiences. How do you break through that? Is to have enough stability of attention that one can see their own projection. Because when you see your own projection, it becomes slightly different, slightly differentiated from what's there. And then instead of just having the same old experience, you have a different experience because your projection is seen as differentiated from the circumstance or the event. If you continue this over time, what happens is you develop new patterns. Because most of what happens the Vedantins will be unhappy. Remember, there's only one of us here. There is only one of us in this room. Both cannot be correct. Yes. So, over time, what happens is we see, over time, what happens is we see we have these different experiences, and that causes us to develop new patterns, and we start having different experiences. This is the result of this internal process in our mind. Because for most of us, we're operating within the same areas of operation. I sleep in the same bed with the same person every night. There is no changing of that. Well, I mean, now we're at my parents' house, so we're in a different bed, but it's the same person, right? I go to work in the same building. It's a Zoom building with the same people. But as my system changes, I perceive it differently. So the last section of chapter 1 talks about the development of clarity that happens as you pierce through your patterning, and the development of clarity that happens when the mind has been stable, or when the mind is stable. If we see everything as projections, how do we ever take a stand or be in a role with conviction? Because the main idea appears to be about the world, but it's not. It's about an internal aligning. What that means is the world is a set, just like a play. And what it does is, what we will think is that I should see clearly and perceive clearly and figure it out and then decide how to proceed. Because that is based on your identity, and that is going to cause you a lot of problems. So what happens? The clarity that's most important is the differentiating between my patterning and my knowing. What all of this is set up to do in the last section is to help us get clear about what does it feel like when I'm operating from patterning, and what does it feel like when I'm operating a little bit more authentically. It will never be possible to eliminate patterns. We're going to say more as we go. So the point is not to get clear about something and then make a decision. The point is to get clear about, am I operating from the right place or not, and then go forward.